Well, good evening, everyone. It's always so nice to be here. Whether it's in the role of somebody who's doing the question of the week, I never did the question of the week, but whether I'm here doing the gospel moment or doing the lecture or simply hosting the evening, it's always a wonderful pleasure to be here. And it's a wonderful opportunity for me because I'm always learning when I do these things. And I invite everyone here, if they wish to do so, to volunteer and participate in our services, because we are here to serve God and we are here to serve Jesus. So whenever we come up here and we do something, whether it's a 5-minute dissertation or a small discussion about whatever topic it may be, whether there's a teaching from Jesus or a teaching from Kardec, it makes no difference, because you're up here and you're pouring out whatever's within your soul and it's helping you to connect. So I welcome all of you to start volunteering for these tiny little duties, because they will build up and up and up into perhaps a wonderful project for your own self to help you in your own inner elevation. So with that said, thank you very much for your attention today. And tonight I want to talk about something very special. And I want everyone to imagine a shirt. Well, obviously everyone knows what a shirt is. And sometimes when we have a shirt on, we may see a loose thread, a loose piece of thread. And we typically want to remove that as soon as possible because it ruins the flow of the shirt, the aesthetic of the shirt. But you take care not to rip it too quickly so you don't ruin the entire shirt. So you carefully pull onto the thread and you cut it off slowly. So what does this mean? What is the analogy here? When we pull the thread slowly, we begin to see this interwoven thread, these lines that are interconnected, that form the fabric of this shirt. And that is precisely what creation is. Creation is nothing more than an infinite set of lines interwoven, these threads interwoven together, creating this fabric that covers the cosmos. Basically, a universal shirt, if you want to simplify it. And who is the one that weaved this shirt? Who weaves this fabric that's responsible for holding together eternity and creation? The Creator. So the Creator weaves this shirt and gives us this wonderful fabric in which it expands layer upon layer upon layer, and sometimes it contracts as the threads become tighter together, closer and closer together. And what is that? That is nothing more than the centripetal and the centrifugal force of the Creator. Centripetal meaning that it attracts, centrifugal meaning that it expands. So it is the breathing of the Father, His breath, His very heartbeat. The heartbeat that once it beats, or once He inhales, it brings everything together united in this thread. And when He exhales, it expands creation, therefore creating this extra layer of fabric. And this layer is not to say that it is the terrestrial layer of kinship that is found in the blood ties of corporeality. It is the transcendental kinship that goes beyond our current existence and our current life and follows us through our immortality in our various journeys. And what is this? What is this kinship? It is nothing more than the... No, this isn't working. Okay. It is nothing more than the transcendental kinship. And I thought this picture was wonderful because it really captures the notion of what I'm trying to explain to you here. And how else can we imagine this transcendental kinship? Let us look at another analogy. We have various, well, not various, but an infinite amount of solar systems in our universe. I don't know if it's infinite, but definitely a number which we can't even comprehend. And in this solar system, in our system, we have a community, a solar neighborhood. In the center of this neighborhood is the sun. The sun, the star that is born, and when it is born, it emanates this love. The sun becomes this center of force, this love, and it emanates this energy from it. The tiny particles of life that just go from it out into the beyond. And thus, progressing from there, we start to see forms take shape, agglomerations, agglutinations of these particles that form the planets. And these planets feel attracted to this center of force known as the sun. And these planets, in finding their own harmonious orbit in this neighborhood, begin to become a part of this solar family. But then, beyond the planets, we have the planetoids, also known as asteroids and comets. We have the asteroid belt, which lies between Mars and between Mars and Jupiter, and the Kuiper belt, which is beyond Neptune and Uranus. What are these small planetoids in this analogy? Well, these small planetoids are those that have not yet found that harmonious orbit in order to live within the solar community. They are still somewhat trying to assert themselves in this interwoven thread of this kinship that exists throughout the cosmos. So these asteroids and these comets are still trying to find their place, but they're attracted to the center of force, to this love, the love of this kinship that exists among the planets and among the sun. So they are bound and still organized in a certain haphazard manner around the sun and orbiting around the center of force. And every so often they bump into each other, and one of them will leave this organized, haphazardly organized orbit of asteroids and comets that lie just beyond Mars, and then they will start gravitating towards an object, a celestial body. In essence, we can also continue with the analogy saying that this asteroid or this comet is nothing more than a spirit, a brother or sister, who's trying to find his own path within a family, within a solar community. And thus, it begins to be attracted by the sun, and it begins to form a certain path, a certain route. And as it goes through its path and through its route, it starts to, I'm really working out my abs, going back and forth. And the asteroid starts to form and gain more and more material. And it becomes older. It matures through its trials as it orbits around the solar community. And eventually, this meteor will find, perhaps not here in this solar community, but in another one, its own orbit, where it will find that harmony, the affinity of that particular family, that kinship in that other solar system, which is, let's say, the neighboring solar system to ours. And perhaps it will start orbiting around that center of force in that system and find a connection with the love in that solar system. So this is what's so beautiful about this transcendental kinship. This is just an analogy, a simplistic analogy. I'm no astronomer and I don't know much about it, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of what this kinship is that transcends our current life on earth. The kinship that is built upon the various existences of our spirits throughout the course of our journeys. And so, in the beginning, there was a Decalogue. The 10 Commandments that were given to humanity as the foundation of the divine law, brought to us by Moses. Moses, who Emmanuel called the medium extraordinaire, because he was able to channel the message of the Father and bring forth these 10 Commandments that laid that concrete cement foundation for how we should act here on earth. And he said the following, or one of the in the Decalogue in Exodus 20:12, honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. The land the Lord your God is giving you. What is the land the Lord your God is giving you? During that time, the Jewish people, or the Hebrew people, during their exodus from Egypt, they had been walking a long trek in the desert. And humanity was still at its youth and could not comprehend something beyond the current terrestrial life. So Moses and God himself had to speak in a way that they would understand the message and comprehend it. So this land that he promised was that land just beyond this trek, a physical place that they so desired in order to carry out their plan, their lives, this land of milk and honey. So he had to paint it in a physical picture so that they would have this impetus, this motivation to go after it. But then, not long after, in the course of infinity, not long after, but a few thousand years later, Jesus came and he said the following. And this is found in Mark 10:19, Luke 18:20, Matthew 19:18-19. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not give fake testimony, honor your father and mother, and love your neighbor as yourself. So honor your father and mother. Here he is, Jesus, repeating the commandments, repeating the first foundational laws, but he did come and say to us that he did not come to abolish the law. He came to fulfill it. He came to perhaps append to the law, to perhaps delve further into the law, because humanity at that point in time was already matured enough a little bit to have reached its initial point of adulthood, to begin to comprehend that the promised land from the Lord perhaps isn't one of this world. It is a land that goes beyond the earth. And so he did say in John 18:36 that my kingdom is not of this world. In other words, here he is introducing to humanity the concept of the fact that we are not bodies, we are spiritual beings within a corporeal envelope, a vehicle that allows us to progress, to learn the lessons of life, so that we may become closer and closer in this continuous ascension and communion with the Divine One. And what does honor your father and your mother necessarily mean here? Well, Kardec explains this to us in the Gospel Explained by the Spiritist Doctrine, where he says that honoring your father and your mother is the application of the universal, excuse me, that of was not supposed to be there. The application of the universal love for our fellow human beings. And the family unit teaches us that love should be joined by respect, caring, and deference. The family unit is a nucleus, a small representation of the cosmic family. It is where we get to practice how we should behave. In honoring our fathers and mothers, we are honoring the one parent. Because when we honor our fathers and mothers, we are honoring our brothers. And because our brothers, like us, are created by the Father and are a little piece of the Father, and so are we, when we honor them, we honor ourselves, and thus we honor the one Father. It's a simple way to think about it, but it makes perfect sense. That's why it's so important that we actually behave in such a way, that we conduct ourselves in accordance with the principles that Jesus left to us, so that we may do what is right and what is expected of us in our roles here in the earth. So then, Jesus, never missing a beat, never missing an opportunity to teach the truth, to teach the spiritual essence of our being, he took the opportunity of this particular moment to display and explain the difference between spiritual kinship and corporeal kinship. The blood ties of the body, of the physical life, and the actual transcendental ties of the immortal life, the life of the spirit. Where while Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brothers stood outside. Wanting to speak to him, someone told him, "Your mother and brothers are standing outside, wanting to speak to you." Now here we must remember that Jesus would never, the individual, the entity of the Christ, the one who uttered the words, "Honor your father and mother," would never show indifference to his own brothers and mother in the life which he traversed here on earth. That is not the point of this message. If this is how it is understood, it is misunderstood. Here he is simply trying to portray or to put forth a point of separation between those that incarnate in the world and those that incarnate with us in the many lives which we lead throughout our existences. And so it goes on. Jesus replied to this particular individual, who is my mother and who are my brothers? In essence, who are the ones that truly follow and adhere and observe the laws of the Father? Who here honors their father and mother? For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. And this connects back to the original message from the Decalogue in Exodus 20:12, where it said, honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God has given you. So honor your father and your mother, the highest application of love, because if we are to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, our parents are the closest neighbors to us. And thus, we must love them a lot. A lot. I can't emphasize this enough. Because if we can't even love our parents, who are we going to love? If we can't love ourselves, we can't love anyone. We have to first find that love that lies deep within us, and then spread that joy and love to those that are nearest to us, our neighbors, loving them as we now love ourselves, our parents, our brother, our sister, and thus they will love others, and so on and so forth, until love envelops the entirety of creation, much like that shirt, the interwoven fabric of this transcendental kinship. So we have here, I thought that was a pretty neat animation. Anyway. We have, when we incarnate into the world, we have two roles to play. Some of us only play one, but there are two roles that most of us play. One is the role of a son or daughter, and the second one is the role of a parent. The role of a son or daughter is the role of honoring the father and the mother, of respecting them, of offering deference to them. It is nothing more than a small practice session for the true honoring of the cosmic Father. So it is a small stage in which you carry out your play, and you have the free will to act in any way you wish, in any way you'd like to act. But if you honor the father and mother and act the way you're supposed to, and you observe the laws of the Father, you observe the love that Jesus taught us, then you're being that righteous son. Because oftentimes there are many sons and daughters, or let me start over with that. In life, we have our parents who sacrifice so much for us since the beginning. Since we are born, they spend countless hours feeding us, nourishing us. How many nights they stayed up with us while we were sick? And what do we do as repayment when they get old, when they become frail, when the role of the son is reverted into the role of a parent, because now you must take care of your parent? Do they present you with an accounting of how much they spent? A bill of how many, I don't know, how many eggs you ate your entire life? How much time they spent up with you? How many sleepless nights they had because of you? Do they do any of that? I don't think so. So what are we supposed to do then as sons and daughters? The only way to truly repay that wonderful service is to observe that with gratitude and being charitable and offering them when they are elderly, when they are frail, offering them the same care and love that they offer to us. That is a law of reciprocity. Do unto others as you like others to do unto you. And then when we have the second role, which is the role of the parents, in this role we are learning to become a steward of the things of this world, a steward of the things of God, or co-creators of God's other children / spirits. We must remember that we must distance ourselves from the corporeality of things and realize that babies children are not children made by parents. The parents furnish and provide the material wrapping or the envelope. But these are spirits, millenary spirits that have traversed many lives, that have come into your sphere of responsibility, in which you now have been given the stewardship to care for. And it is up to you to care for that child, much like God expects you to. And thus, when we do this, this prepares us for the ascendancy and the communion with the Father. Because if we are able to care for our children properly, and this is a small practice of the true stewardship of creation, then we show to the Father that we are able to carry out the right duties, that we are responsible spirits, that we are ready for more, that we are ready for more difficult tasks. And thus, He gives us these tasks. And this is what helps us in our spiritual ascendancy. The Christ of this earth, He who raised Himself through His own efforts, much like we have to do. He was once like us at some point in time, a very long time ago. We must act and follow His conduct in our own paths in order to be able to get to that point where we ourselves, at some future point in time, will also be responsible for a planetary family, much like the Christ is. So that we may understand the transcendental kinship, the solidarity that permeates through the universe. So, all incarnations in family circles are nothing more than small practices to help us become a part of the cosmic family and honor the one parent. So it is crucial for us to remember that we must always love one another, especially in the family circle, because the family circle is the most intimate of circles. And if we can't open our hearts in the intimacy of our own homes, we shall never open our hearts outside of home, and will remain shut off completely in our own worlds instead of opening ourselves up to the love that surrounds us and the love that is readily available once you open yourself up to be absorbed within you, so that you can carry it out in accordance with the laws of divinity. So we understand that there are a lot of families that don't get along. Lots of sons that don't like their parents. Lots of parents that don't like their sons. Lots of brothers that don't like their brothers. Sisters that don't like their sisters, right? So why is this? Well, if we look at it from an earthly perspective, it makes no sense. Nothing in this life could have created an antipathy or this antagonism between a brother and a sister. Nothing. Why would it makes no sense. But once we distance ourselves from the material life, we begin to see that perhaps that spirit, that one spirit who is a son or a father or a brother or a sister or a mother, that doesn't get along with someone, might be because they incarnated into that body, into that family, because they need to be there. They asked for that moment of redemption in order to correct wrongs that were either done by him or done to him by those very spirits that are part of that nucleus, that family in which he finds himself. So perhaps one of these spirits, your father or your mother or your brother or your sister, was someone who did you wrong in a past life, who committed a crime against you, adultery, usurped your fortune, killed a family member of yours in a past life. Who knows? And then you hold and harbor this anger, this rancor, this grief in the spirit world, because when we discarnate, we don't become angels. We don't leave the body and all of a sudden have wings and fly up into heaven. We leave here the same way we are at this moment. If I were to discarnate now, right now, in this stage, I would take with me only that which I have thus far obtained within my own self. Not the material possessions, but the virtues and the spiritual possessions that we take with us. So, if I only harbor anger, rancor, and grief, I'm taking that with me to the spiritual world. And I'm going to hold on to that. And I have two choices when I'm in the spiritual world. First choice, to remain stationary, to remain in this realm of darkness, of my own mental darkness, because there is no eternal hell or suffering, because suffering is something created by our own psyche. And as soon as we realize that it is our own psyche and that we accept the fact that we need to right these wrongs, that suffering is over. Because we connect with the Father, we connect with the true law of progress and the law of reincarnation. So, if this spirit finally remembers that he has to redeem himself, or that he has to work on repairing and reconciliating with this brother or sister who did him wrong, he then beseeches the Lord and says, give me another opportunity. Let me return into that home of that spirit that did me wrong in a past life, so that I may perhaps then work with him. This will be my expiation, my trial, my purgatory, so that I can right my wrongs and learn to love him, because I'm in the nucleus of the family, living with him each and every day. And perhaps I can learn to live with him into immortality, if I'm able to share a life with him, if I'm able to recognize that he, as a parent of mine, cared for me since birth, if he, as a brother of mine, watched over me when my parents weren't around. This is what's so important to understand. When we look at a son that's ungrateful to us, or a daughter that's ungrateful to us, there's a reason for that. It isn't the reason of this life. It is a reason of a past life, of a past deed that maybe you yourself, we ourselves committed. We're the guilty ones. So we have to turn up to God and say, Lord, I know one of us is guilty, but please help me redeem the situation. Help me to make this family right. Help me to right the path of this son or daughter of mine who transgressed, who finds himself in this situation now because he doesn't like this home that he is in. He's unhappy. Because then it requires strength from that suffering spirit to be able to put up with this, because for him it is a trial. He doesn't realize it because he's limited by the faculties of his current existence. But as a spirit, deep down he realizes that all the anger he has is for a particular reason. So it takes a will, an effort. He must have strong will to want to overcome these issues, to overcome these obstacles. That is the only way in which he will succeed. So Kardec talks about this and covers this in the following passage in the Gospel according to Spiritism, where he says, God never gives anyone a challenge greater than the strength of the person who asked for it. God gives us all of the instruments and tools which we need in order to effect the righteous mission which we are here to effect. He gives us all of the resources we need. We are born in the place that we need to be born. We have the family which we need to have. We have the life which we need to have in order to carry out that which we must carry out. So God gives us a tool. Let's say our vehicle is broken down. All of the parts of our vehicle is broken down, the vehicle of life. God gives us a wrench. The wrench, and he says, you don't have to repair the vehicle. Just tighten that bolt and we'll call it even. What happens? It takes your strength and your will to pick up that wrench off the floor and tighten that bolt. But so many of us don't have that strength and that will. We look at the wrench and we say, I could pick it up. I could do what's right. But I'm comfortable where I'm at. I like harboring these sensations. I'm selfish. Why should I work for the betterment of others when I feel this way? So, God only allows a soul to undertake a trial that it can complete successfully. If the result is failure, the cause does not lie in the lack of conditions, as I have explained, but more likely in the lack of willpower. So it is up to us. God gave us free will. He's not going to force us to do anything. We force ourselves to suffer until we learn to pick up that wrench and tighten that bolt. We force ourselves to reincarnate over and over and over and over and over again in that troublesome family because we're still stubborn. We're those asteroids and meteors who have not yet found that organized orbit around the sun, the reluctant spirits, the recalcitrant spirits who can't yet understand the truth, who can't yet comprehend what they need to do with their own lives. The word family, the etymology of the word family in Latin comes from famulus. And famulus means servant. When we are in a family, we are to be servants. Not servant of the family, servant of the Christ, who is the pastor, excuse me, not the pastor, who is the shepherd of this great family of sheep here on earth. We have to serve him and serve the Father and observe these laws and carry them out in order to have the true sense of success in this life. And there's a question on the Spirit's book, question 909, that covers this. And the question asks, could humans always overcome their evil tendencies through their own efforts? In other words, can you pick up that wrench and tighten that bolt by yourself? I think the answer is clear. We have arms. God gave us arms, gave us legs, not for them to be lying around and for you to be sitting on a chair or lying in a hammock enjoying a drink. He gave you legs and arms in order for you to labor, to work, to pick yourself up when you fall, and to continue on that journey of ascension. It's a steep journey, and sometimes the climb is difficult. But guess what? Once we get to that top, the top of that mountain, the horizon is so much more beautiful. And the sun is so much shinier, and the sky is so much clearer. And we get to see something much, much greater. We have a deeper view of things, a deeper understanding of things. And the answer to the question is yes, and sometimes with very little effort. Little effort, an insignificant amount of effort. Again, the car analogy, the entire car is broken. Tires are falling off, the motor is falling off, the doors, the hinges aren't working, the windows aren't working, the air conditioning is broken. But guess what? You don't have to repair everything. You have to only pick up that wrench and tighten that one bolt on the door of that car. The little, insignificant, very small effort. The problem is, what they lack is willpower. What we lack is the desire to say, I need to right my wrongs. I need to succeed. I need to understand why I am in this family. I need to understand why I'm in this current situation. I need to understand what I need to do in order to transcend and to become better. How few of you make such an effort, however. It is truly sad that very few of us, including myself, oftentimes make very little effort when the answer is lying right in front of us. We only suffer as long as we want to. We only suffer as long as we want to. The moment we realize that we do not need to suffer, we no longer suffer. The moment we accept the suffering as an invitation, a painful invitation that will remedy our ills, we accept it and we connect ourselves in thought with God, we no longer suffer. That is why Jesus said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Because even though he went through all of those ordeals, he went through it peacefully and harmoniously. Why? Because he accepted that suffering and he realized that that suffering was something that he must undergo to display and demonstrate to humanity what true love is, what true compassion is. What it is like to be a true servant of the Father. To truly love your neighbor, even while your neighbor is whipping you to death. To truly love your neighbor while your neighbors are crucifying you. To truly love your neighbor while they don't testify for you. How much did he suffer? And yet, he showed only love. Because the password to God is love. Love is that which binds, it is the force that binds this fabric that interweaves eternity, that connects all of us, that connects the family unit, the small family unit, representative of the greater municipal family, state family, national family, continental family, and global family. Because the earth is a family. If we are all brothers and sisters, sons of one parent, then we are all one great family. And we still bicker. The wars and the conflicts in this world, what are they? Nothing more than an expanded reflection of the bickering that goes on in our own homes. But in greater numbers. A collective bickering, if you will. That's what war is. Disagreements between nations that have had disagreements from long, long time ago. So we must understand this and overcome it and transcend it. So we understand that we incarnate into families, generation after generation, forming this wonderful spiral, this ascending spiral that just goes up and up and up and up until it reaches the Father. And through this spiral, we incarnate in different families, we learn, we fight, we reconcile, we ascend, and then we invite the less evolved brothers to join us with our charitable hands in this family that has reasserted itself, so that he too may learn what love is, and then thus in turn he may later help those who also need to be helped. So it is this interlacing thread that I spoke about in the beginning of those spirits that incarnate back and forth in the different families, in the different existences, and so on and so forth. And at the very bottom of this, we have the planetary families, the celestial schools, if you will, where we learn in our own classrooms, the classroom being our family, how to deal with these other students and how to listen to the teacher of that classroom, because there's only one teacher in that classroom, and it's Jesus. And Jesus teaches all of these classrooms, not from his throne up above, but within our hearts. Because the teachings of the Christ are nothing more than the teachings of the universal law. He simply transmitted them to us in a way humanity would understand. It is the law of God, and they are within us. It is written in our consciences. So the planets are where we learn how to become a functional family, how to love one another through the different incarnations and different groups in which we incarnate, and thus we progress and advance. Then we have the good spirits, the families that have found that harmonious organization, that solar system that has found its harmony, where the planets around that center of force orbit so smoothly and in utter tranquility. And these higher families, because they understand that so many still need to understand what true love is, they are separated sometimes in an incarnation to allow the lesser brothers to incarnate into that family so that they can learn how to deal with their own problems through the charitable actions of those spirits that are incarnated as their parents or as their brothers or sisters, to teach them how to do so. Because we find in life sometimes brothers and sisters that don't get along in the same family. Yet, we find brothers and sisters that are in separate family, friends that have an incredible affinity, that get along so well. And it makes no sense. Why can't I get along with this individual who has lived with me since birth, yet I can get along with this person whom I met 2 years ago, and I feel like he is my brother? Why? These are the beings that were separated from us, but we share this affinity with them from past lives, past existences, or perhaps because we're in the same level of evolution or progress spiritually as these other ones. This is why we have the families that are harmonious. They share this affinity. And then comes that one stubborn, recalcitrant meteor or comet trying to disturb the harmony of the solar system and crash into one planet, floods the planet, and then this planet crashes into another one, and then a chain of events happens, and the whole family comes apart. Why? Because they didn't prepare themselves. They didn't really focus and pray and prepare themselves to receive this brother through faith and strength, so they could be able to support him and help him in his trials. And then we have, obviously, the Christs, not just Jesus Christ. Christs are pure spirits. Christs govern each planet. Christ, you have your hierarchy in everything. This is what the spirits tell us in the works of Kardec and the many other works that were psychographed throughout the years and the decades. You have the Christ of the earth, which is our wonderful Christ, Jesus Christ. You have the Christ of other planets. The solar system has a Christ, the galactic Christ, the nebulae Christs, and so on and so forth. These are those spirits that have embraced the true notion of the family, the transcendental kinship, because their family is composed of billions, trillions, quadrillions, quintillions, sextillions of beings that are under their stewardship, because they fulfill that role as a son and as a father at the same time to the one parent, because they're the true sons of that one parent, the sovereign, the cosmic sovereign, because they abide by his rules and they live for love, and they are the true stewards of his children, his other spirits, the wayward flock, because they share with them this love that they've learned through their own existences and their own journeys. And then at the very top, of course, we have the cosmic sovereign, our cosmic creator, God. And we find in the Gospel explained by the Spiritist doctrine, to summarize what I've said here, those whose members have spiritual ties, the ties are long-lasting and strengthened with their progress. They also carry over into the spirit world by way of diverse journeys of the soul. So those affinities, those friendships that we build here on earth, how nice is it that we know this? How nice is it that Spiritism comes to demonstrate this to us and show us and clarify it to us, that those bonds that we build here on earth aren't over when we discarnate. They continue. The friendships, the loyalty, the love that we share for one another, they carry over into the next life, into the world of causes. And here, that love and affinity you have for that other person is just a small taste of how much we can share when we're free and liberated from this limited body that limits our faculties so much. And I want to summarize today's talk with a message from the book Família, or Family, and it is lesson number 1, entitled Em Família, or In the Family. The book isn't translated into English, so bear with me because I translated the text myself, and it was a pretty good translation, so you guys will understand it. And here, Emmanuel, it was a book psychographed by Chico Xavier and dictated by Emmanuel. If you do not practice the communion with Jesus in the familial group or the isolated effort, in other words, if you don't exercise the teachings of Christ within yourself, by yourself, so that then you can perhaps exercise it with others or with your family by loving and sharing with them, then you better make haste to seek out neighborhood, inspiration, and guidance. In other words, seek out your brothers that have made this connection. Seek out inspiration through prayer. Prayer is simple. Prayer is just a conversation. All you have to do is talk to God, or to Jesus, or to your guardian angel, or whoever you want to talk to. Just talk like we are talking right now. It doesn't have to be something fancy. It doesn't have to be elaborate or eloquent words. Anything works as long as you're sincere and you have your heart poured out when you speak. Because many people speak very well, and it almost sounds like honey going into your ears because it's so soft, so smooth, so sweet. But in reality, inside, it's all rotten. That's why when we pray, we have to pray with sincerity. What good is it to read nice words of a book if you don't understand what they mean, if you don't actually drink their meaning and reflect upon them? Do not lose the treasure of time in fruitless and destructive complaints. The time is now. Now. What are you waiting for? What are we waiting for? Get up and do what needs to be done to resolve your issues, to better yourself. Stop complaining. Oh, I have too much to do. Stop complaining. Oh, my life is filled with activity. Stop complaining. Oh, my family. Stop complaining. My brother. Stop. Be quiet. Reflect. Relax. And pray. And realize that those things happen to you because you allow them to happen. You accept these things. Me as well. We accept these situations because we allow them to happen. Everything that happens in our lives is because we allow them to happen. Sure, we are not in complete control, obviously, because there are lessons that we need to learn and we have to go through them. But the small issues, don't complain about the family that you're in. Don't complain about your brother, sister, mother, father, grandfather, because you're there for a reason. I have already explained everything here. And it's not my word. They are not my words. These are the words of Allan Kardec, one of the greatest spirits, in my opinion, to have incarnated on earth. And he told us all of this. So let us not waste time complaining. Let us instead take that time that we would waste complaining and do something good. Be a true servant of the Christ. Do a good deed and help others, beginning with your own home, with yourself, so that then you can help others. Because we can't help others if we're not happy, if we're not satisfied. Happiness has to come from within. It has to start with us before we can actually help others. All advancement, all progression begins with the self, It is only then, when we can be happy with the self, that we can then help the other selves. Seek to understand and aid all of those at home, so that all at home may understand and aid you in the daily struggle as much as possible. Solidarity, fraternity, charity. Do unto others as you want others to do unto you. Reciprocity. Help those who need help. Because in turn, maybe not in this life, but in the next life, they're going to come to your aid. Maybe in this life, the son or the daughter didn't recognize the help that you provided, the nourishment that you provided. But that's okay, because they will realize this eventually. We have eternity to work problems out. There's no need to be anxious to resolve everything now. We're immortal. We are going to have plenty of opportunities to do everything we need to do. That is why we need to do everything with patience, tranquility, harmony, and calmly, most importantly. Because the moment we lose ourselves, we can't get anything done right. I know this from my own experience. The moment you have too many things going on in your head, you lose things, you lose the direction of your life. And you don't want that to happen. So always remember to remain tranquil and calm and let things work themselves out through love, because love is that remedy that cures all our ills. The home this is an important one. The home is the port of departure to the high seas of the world for the soul. The home is the safe harbor where we can build that ship with the compass, the moral compass, filled with the virtues that are going to guide us to that next journey on that next island of fruitful activities. And whomsoever does not carry within their heart the ballast is, if anyone doesn't know, is the equipment in the ship that helps it to keep afloat and balance in the water. And whomsoever does not carry within their heart the ballast of experience will seldom escape partial or total shipwreck. What does that mean? That's a wonderful analogy. It really paints the picture, doesn't it? If you don't take that compass with you that's going to guide you to that next solid ground amid the darkness of the tempestuous waters of human life on earth, you're going to crash and wreck your ship on the next rocky shore. And what's going to happen? You're going to sit there and you're going to reflect and you're going to be upset. Then you're going to beseech God for another opportunity, another ship, another body to traverse that journey once again. And perhaps this time you might get it right. Have the righteous compass to guide you to the right place. Seek peace with others or yourself, most importantly with yourself. How can you want world peace when you're not at peace with yourself? Oh, there should be peace in the Middle East. There should be peace in this country, that country. Are you peaceful with yourself first? How do you want to impose peace on someone when you yourself aren't peaceful in your own thoughts, alone at home? If you yourself transgress the laws, the universal laws of God, how do you want to resolve the laws of other nations that are completely different cultures? Don't impose. Christ never imposed himself on anyone. Never. And he knows everything that we are yet to know and more. And he never forced anything on us, never imposed anything on us. And who are we, tiny little particles manifested in this human body, to tell anyone what they need to do in order to get it right? Remember that every day is a day of new beginnings. When the sun rises in that sky in the early morning, it is extending an invitation to you, an invitation to a new lesson, to a new short journey that's going to help you on your path in life. A new short journey filled with opportunities for you to right your wrongs, for you to do what is right, for you to act and reflect upon the teachings of the Christ, for you to do what is expected of you as a servant, as part of that family, in your own home, for you to act with love, for you to get back to that shirt and no longer become that loose thread, to put yourself back into that interwoven thread of that fabric that composes the cosmos. Because we are tiny, insignificant almost, in this cosmos. We are nothing. Anybody who has seen a video of the Earth from a distance, and the solar system from a distance, galaxy from a distance, will realize We are nothing but a tiny grain of sand lost in eternity. But even so, each one of us has a crucial role to make everything work. We're the tiny little bolts that sometimes need a little bit of tightening to make things work. But we are still bolts that are necessary to hold things together. So I wanted to leave you with this wonderful picture that I think summarizes and completes everything I've talked about here. And I want to thank you all very much for your attention today. And I hope that I've been able to share with you some good messages here and good words. Not my words, words from books I read, from the studies I do. And I want to invite you all to do the same. Because I say this every time I come up here and talk. It's so important to study and read. Because if you lay there dormant, waiting for someone to do things for you, you're never going to go anywhere. Open up one of the books, the Pentateuch, the 5 books that Kardec left for us. The Spirit's book, What is Spiritism? The Medium's book. Medium's book is a bit technical. Some people don't like it. It doesn't matter. Read it. The Gospel according to Spiritism, Genesis, and posthumous works. Read them all. Reflect upon the teachings that are there. It's a wealth. It is a treasure. And it is with these things, these tools, these are the wrenches that I have in my life to tighten my own bolt. So I welcome all of you to do the same so that you can tighten your own familial bolts so that your family can remain strong, together, and unified in love. Thank you very much.